So an article has come out by The Guardian asking, why hasn't Middle America given Paige Bueckers the Caitlin Clark treatment? And forewarning, this video is going to be a little bit of a rant. So I actually saw this on Twitter as Mick, as in Mick Talks Hoops, posted the headline of this article, of which I went, looked into it, read it, and the more I read it, the more I honestly just could not take it, and I had to comment on it. Before I get into the aspects of this article, which I just see as so much race baiting, that I had to make a video about it, I do want to give you a little bit of a background on myself, as I personally did grow up in a biracial home. I mean, my parents were separated, but my dad and his wife, she is Black, and my brother is half Black. So I can't pretend to know all of everything that people in Black America go through. I do have to say, though, that there are aspects of this article that I can absolutely negate. And this writer does talk about Paige Bueckers also having grown up in a biracial family. So there's a lot that I can relate to with Paige Bueckers in this aspect. And I myself am so happy to bring people together. And I appreciate so much of the game. I do happen to be a big Caitlin Clark fan. That's pretty obvious, as most of my content is, Fever specific. And listen, the person that wrote this article has every right to tell their point of view, their think piece on what's going on in the world of the division in women's basketball, of Caitlin Clark and this quote-unquote old guard. First of all, I do want to state, I do love Paige Bueckers as a basketball player. I think she has really been doing a phenomenal job, especially as of late. Especially coming back from an ACL injury, which for a lot of people is very hard to come back from as an athlete. Her facilitating, what she adds to the Huskies is really beyond measure. And this is in no way any slight on Paige Bueckers as a basketball player, who, by the way, is declaring for the WNBA. This was just announced a few minutes ago. But back to the matter at hand. Okay, so this was written by Eaton Thomas, who is a former pro NBA baller. I initially actually thought this was written by a woman whose name was at the bottom of the article, who went to Harvard, and I was about to just go off, but no, it wasn't. It was written by former NBA player Eaton Thomas. And the title of the article is, Why Hasn't Middle America Given Paige Bueckers the Caitlin Clark Treatment? Okay, so the UConn star has embraced Black America rather than being pitted against it. It means she has not been lionized in the same way as a similarly brilliant player. Lionized. Wow, okay. It goes on here to state some of Paige Bueckers' awards and trophies, Player of the Year. It goes into her injury. Okay, that's all fine. But then it starts getting dicey, stating that coming back from an ACL injury deserves a standing ovation, and yet Bueckers doesn't receive the same fawning attention from a large group of parts of white America as Clark, a player of similar skills. First of all, not all fans of Caitlin Clark are white. This is so apparent as a member of social media who interacts with a lot of Caitlin Clark fans, and so many of them are not white. It's just insulting to assume that that's the case to the people that aren't white, to the Black Americans that do love Caitlin Clark. He goes on to state that perhaps it's because, unlike Clark, Bueckers has always been outspoken on issues off the court. And if you aren't aware, she did make a speech after she won the 2021 ESPY Award, and she used her acceptance speech to celebrate and honor Black women in particular.
The light that I have now as a white woman who leads a Black-led sport and celebrated here, I want to show a light on Black women. They don't get the media coverage that they deserve. They've given so much to this sport and the community and society as a whole, and their value is undeniable. And in the WNBA, last season, the postseason awards, 80% of the winners were Black, but they got half the coverage as the white athletes. So I think it's time for change. Sports media holds the key to storylines. Sports media and sponsors tell us who is valuable, and you have told the world that I matter today, and everyone who voted, thank you. But I think we should use this power together to also celebrate Black women.
And you know what? That's actually pretty cool. However, I think it's really discounted that Caitlin Clark, right before she entered the WNBA, did go on Saturday Night Live and did also recognize all of the amazing black athletes that came before her.
I hope you have a great first season.
Thanks. I'm sure it will be a big first step for me. But it's just one step for the WNBA. Thanks to all the great players like Cheryl Swoops, Lisa Leslie, Cynthia Cooper, the great Dawn Staley, and my basketball hero, Maya Moore. These are the women that kicked down the door so I could walk inside. So I want to thank them tonight for laying the foundation.
And while I cannot state what the viewership of the ESPYs was, I can tell you that a whole bunch of people saw the Saturday Night Live commentary. And then he goes to say that after the ESPY Awards, Black America cheered Bueckers. It seemed like mainstream white America, a demographic that once viewed her as, in her words, a media darling, weren't singing her praises quite as much, and still don't. Is this coincidence? Or maybe because her injuries have made people forget her greatness as an athlete? Possibly. So, no, that is not what happened. What happened is Caitlin Clark, in her sophomore year and really in her junior year, just started excelling and doing things that nobody had ever seen a female basketball player do. Like, nobody had consistently been shooting these from the logo passes. And while I happen to think her assists are one of her greatest attributes, those aren't the things that are as flashy as logo threes that people want to see. It just so happens that people were noticing them after these things that nobody else was doing, after these long, consistent logo bombs, and the way that she brought up a pretty average Iowa team to bring them to the championship, not once but twice. She was an underdog story, and Paige Bueckers, for as great as she is not an underdog. And okay, then he gets into the Angel Reese of it. Much of the media made Reese the villain to Clark's heroine after the Black Princess upstaged the Great White Hope. Who says this stuff in an article published by something like The Guardian? Anyway, the viral image of Reese defiantly waving her hand in her face, the same taunt Clark used in a previous game, does not give context for this because Clark in a previous game against Haley Van Lith did wave her hand, but she wasn't waving it to a player, she was waving it to her strength coach. This is what people do on the court. She wasn't chasing anybody around. Not that I find anything horrible about what Angel Reese did. This is on-court trash talk, which for me, fine. It's like they've all been there. They all do it. Okay, so he goes to state that transformed Clark and Reese from two great players to lightning rods for racial animus. Skipping ahead a little bit, they were there to cheer Clark's whiteness and attack Reese's blackness. So I do think that a lot of the backlash that Angel Reese gets is pretty harsh. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of it is unwarranted. Just last night, she was at a game where her brother was playing in the Sweet 16 for Maryland, and they were down. And a CBS reporter, and she wasn't smiling. A CBS reporter posted onto Twitter saying, "Angel Reese doesn't look happy." And I think that there's a wrong time and a wrong place to say certain things, especially when you are a reporter for a credible, publication like CBS Sports. You don't want to kick somebody when they're down. She wasn't supposed to be smiling when when her brother was losing in a very important game. This is the Sweet 16, people. But I think this writer is just bringing anything into his arsenal that he possibly can to fuel the race debate. Oh, guys, and this is good. Meanwhile, during Ramadan, Bueckers cooks breakfast for her Muslim teammate, singing gospel songs, the black versions, before games, has a level of connection with her black teammates, and truly resembles a sisterhood, was raised by her black stepmother, has black stepbrothers and sisters, and has had black boyfriends, has designated herself as an ally to black teammates on multiple occasions, not just in her ESPY speech. All of this simply does not sit well with a certain demographic who embraced Clark and championed her for the wrong reasons. That's not to say all of Clark's fans fall into this category, nor is this the fault of Clark, who just wants to play basketball. Bueckers is a special player and deserves every ounce of praise and respect, both on and off the court. But if she does end up winning a championship and still doesn't receive the praise given to Clark, you'll know why. I think it's severely underrated how diverse Caitlin Clark's fan base actually is. And as somebody who does communicate with a lot of her fan base, I do see it. It is diverse. And yes, a lot of her fans are white people. A lot of people in America are white. So if you kind of divide up the amount of people that are white and the amount of people that are black, and you appropriately parallel the demographics up, it really isn't that crazy. Having said all of this, though, I do not stand for any of the race baiting, any of the negativity that is said around race, around Angel Reese, around any other player for that matter. I have seen that it does exist, and that is quite unfortunate. However, the reason that Caitlin Clark is getting all of this attention is because she is an anomaly. She is a phenomenal player, and Paige Bueckers is also a phenomenal player, but it just isn't the same. She doesn't do the same things. She doesn't do the things that have never been seen. I do appreciate Paige Bueckers' media savvy. She doesn't have Twitter fingers. She does seem like a genuinely sweet, amazing person. And it's unfortunate that Paige Bueckers, Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese are being weaponized by these media outlets to fuel clicks and this horrible debate.